Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Justin Allen Rose, and for the next few episodes, your 7 News team is not only covering state legislative races right here in southwest Oklahoma, but we are also covering the lone congressional race as well. Now in that race, Republican incumbent Tom Cole is facing off against Democratic challenger Mary Brannon and Independent James Stacy, and I plan on speaking with all three candidates before November 5th. Last week, I had the chance to sit down with Mary Brannon to discuss her candidacy. Now here is that full conversation. Mary, it's been a little bit since the last time we talked. We talked right before the Democratic primary race. That's over now. Of course, you won. How do you feel the campaign is going right now for you?
I feel the campaign is going well. I've talked to a lot of people in Oklahoma. You know, we are the reddest of red states. And winning in Oklahoma has to be redefined. Winning in Oklahoma is doing better than you did the time before. This is the fourth time I run against Tom Cole. And like I've said, I will continue to run against him until one of us is in the ground. I started to run because my brother, bless his heart, I adored him. He had 2 tours in Vietnam and came back and was dying. He had was eaten alive by Agent Orange, and on his deathbed, I told him, he said, do not let Republicans make the VA care private because it will close all the VA hospitals. They want to make everything private. Whenever anything goes private, the cost goes up and the quality goes down. They want to make it to where VA care is limited. And you're in Lawton, which is a military town. So people need to know a vote for Trump or a vote for Republicans is a vote against their best interest. I also am trying to keep Social Security from being cut. Take back the tax cuts that only help the wealthy 2%. They want to make the tax cuts for the richest 2% permanent. That we can't save Social Security if the people who are making the most money aren't paying into it. So that's one of my big things. And probably my biggest thing is return protections of Roe v. Wade. No 10-year-old should be forced to have a rapist baby, attaching her to the criminal monster for life. As a retired school counselor, I'm telling you that we've got to make sure that the youth are protected, and Republicans don't care. They are just power hungry, and they only win if they cheat. The thing that hurts Oklahoma is direct party voting. They color in that R at the top of the ballot, and they don't understand the Republican Party is no longer the ethical party of Lincoln and Eisenhower. It is now the party of greed and Trump, and they're voting against their own best interests. And like I said, I am just a retired school counselor, but I'm your average person. And Tom Cole gets big donations from special interests like Big Pharma, and he's against $35 cap on insulin. Well, people in his district are dying because of his voting. But he's been there 22 years. He's bought and paid for. He's not for our best interest. And if you look at the people who donate to him, it's all the ones who are not helping the average person like me, like teachers and union workers and firefighters and policemen. That's why we cannot have Republicans deciding our future, because our future will be bleak.
This is not the first time you're running it, like you said. Basically for the last 8 years, you have been running for this seat, and you just mentioned some of the problems that you see within the district and across the nation. Are those the same problems you have been seeing throughout this 8 years of you running for this seat?
Yes, the Republicans have always been for the rich and the moneyed. And like I said, I told my brother on his deathbed, I would keep VA from going private, because if it goes private, they will decide who gets what care. They will say you can run out of time, and just like private insurance. And I told him on his deathbed I would try to keep that from happening, and that's why I'm going to I will run again next time, and I will run again next time because I promised my brother on his deathbed that I would keep VA care from going private. I don't think people understand. It's not just the veteran who needs that hospital. It's the people who love the veterans. And that's why I will be running again in 2026 if I don't win this time. But now that Tom Cole is appropriations head, he will do everything he can to cut Social Security. Social Security is an earned benefit. It's not an entitlement. He keeps saying it's an entitlement. We paid that money in our whole lives, matched by our employer in interest bearing accounts. It is not going broke. It is only going broke because the rich people are not paying their fair share. And now that he's been elevated to appropriations, I just see it coming anyway. Nothing we can do about it. But I can at least tell people this is what's happening.
You just talked about Social Security. Tom Cole did say we need some restructuring of Social Security, or else it's going to pretty much go away by the the 2030s. You're obviously of a different point of view. In your view, what is needed to keep Social Security the way it is now? Or just more tax cuts needed, or is something else needed?
We need to make sure the rich people are paying their fair share. They're not paying enough in taxes. That tax cut, when they took it from 28% to 21%, that eliminated a lot that was paid into Social Security. And they kept saying, oh, well, the corporations will hire more. It will come back into the community. They didn't do that. They took the tax cuts, still moved out of the country, and bought back their shares. So it didn't help anybody except the rich people. So there is no trickle down. People need to understand when they say trickle down, that means it makes millionaires into billionaires and the average person into the working poor.
Obviously, you are for abortion rights in this country. Would you support a nationwide bill protecting the rights, or pretty much reinstating Roe v. Wade?
Definitely. And I think everyone should feel that way. It's not just, this is reproductive care. They had somebody in Texas who needed, she was aborting, and they said no, and she died. She left a 6-year-old child without a mother. How is that pro-life? It's pro-control. They don't want pro-life. They want pro-birth. Once that baby's here, they don't want to give free and reduced lunches in the schools. That's, as a school teacher, I can tell you that might be the only food they get that day, and they're against it. And they need to take Christian off their information, because they do not do what Jesus would do. He would feed the poor. He would help the sick. He wouldn't say, do you have insurance? And we need to get, and Oklahoma has always been Republican, and we are the 49th in schools. We are the top 10 in teen pregnancy, top 10 in women who are abused by their spouses. How can people keep voting Republican when we have all these problems? I find it amazing.
So do you think that is what is truly needed to solve all those problems you mentioned that has been going on for some time now in the state of Oklahoma, is to simply elect the other party into power, the Democratic Party, politicians such as yourself?
Yes. What do they have to lose? What? They might stay in 49th in education, might stay in top 10 in teen pregnancies, top 10 in abuse by your spouse. What do you have to lose? Give Democrats a chance. That's what I'm saying. And it's been steadily getting worse and worse. And Ryan Walters and Governor Stitt are the problem. They're Republicans. They want to use public tax money for private schools, private religious schools. That violates the Constitution, separation of church and state. But they don't care. They're just going to do it anyway. Take us to court. Well, how about just following the Constitution and we don't have to take you to court? Court's expensive. But I have seen in my 8 years of running just a complete decline. Not just a little bit slipping, complete decline in services and quality of life in Oklahoma. And that scares me. It scares me that Trump might get elected again, where he says he will be a dictator from day one. How do people vote for somebody like that?
Both sides are pitching this election as a battle of democracy, a battle for democracy. Are you of the same point of view?
Yes, and I don't see how when you say you're going to be a dictator, you can say, and you're for democracy, because he sure is not. Did you see the rally last night at Madison Square Gardens, where he called, especially the minorities, where he said, Puerto Rico was a garbage island? How can any Puerto Rican vote for him? And they said, well, that was a comedian. But let me tell you, that comedian was vetted, and just whenever they did the separation of the children from their parents at the border when he first got in, I'm a school counselor. Those kids are damaged for life if they ever even got back with their original parents. They don't care. They want control. And if you want quality of life, quality of rights, they're trying to take away voting rights, reproductive rights, just all the rights we enjoy now, they're trying to do away with. And especially the way they carve up these gerrymandered districts. We had Kendra Horn who went, and she voted for affordable insulin. Well, when the census came up, they carved up her district to where a Democrat will never win again. And that's what's happening in Oklahoma. Republicans are putting us dead last at everything. And we need people to understand. Get out and vote. You cannot sit on the couch this time. If you do, we will have young women continue to die because they can't get reproductive care.
One of the main issues in this election cycle in the minds of the voters is immigration. If you had an immigration bill in front of you, what would you want to see within that in order to, let's say, solve what some people are calling a problem on our southern border?
Well, first of all, I think that could have been solved when James Lankford had that bill. It was the most progressive bill, and Trump said, oh, I want to run on this, so vote against it. I think if you'll look at the statistics, people coming in here are down. But if you deport all these people, first of all, that's what you're gonna have to put them in camps before you can get them to where they're supposed to be, and that's what Hitler did. Most of the people who are coming here are leaving countries where they can be killed. And what happened to asylum? What happened to the Statue of Liberty? Who said, "Bring me your poor"? We need to, and it wasn't a problem till Trump got in. And I think most of the people who are coming over are people who just want a better life for their kids and themselves. And they keep saying they're taking our jobs. Well, do you want to pick berries from from sun up to sunset for not even minimum wage? They're not taking our jobs. They're taking jobs people won't do. And if they are all gone, what's going to happen? The price of food's going to go up because there's no one there to do that labor. The Republicans have already taken away regulations on some industries. That's why McDonald's just recently had people die from onions, because there's no regulations. We've got to get regulations back. We can't have meat packing plants that are making people sick from listeria and others because they are self-regulating, because they're not. And what happens is they pay those Republicans, give them a bunch of money to run, and say, take away the regulations. And you know what? They do that.
If elected, how important would bipartisanship be to you when crafting bills, when trying to get a coalition to vote on certain bills? Would you want to work with the Republican Party, or would you want to stick with the Democratic Party?
I want to work with anybody who wants the future of the United States to be positive and progressive. I think you have to work across the aisle. If you look at some of the previous people, they have worked across the aisle. It hasn't been till the last couple of decades, mostly since Trump, that people refuse to. And it's like, we will get nothing done if you don't work with the other party. That's why a good two-party system is good. You may not get everything you want, but at least you'll get something of what you want on both sides. But if they refuse to come to the table, and Mike Johnson's awful. He's, head of the House. We've got to get the House back, and we've got to keep the Senate. He was at the rally last night with Trump. The head of the U.S. House was at the rally that was mostly against minorities in a speaker. That should concern everyone. Mike Johnson does not want to work across the aisle. And you've got crazy people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Gates. And they are just so extreme. And they are leading the party, it seems like, especially with that QAnon. That is crazy. And I'm 72. I've never been so concerned about the future of the U.S. as I had this election. This is the first time Roe v. Wade has been taken away, and we have a chance to vote. I graduated in 1970 from high school. In 1973, Roe v. Wade came. So I've lived in a time when there wasn't Roe v. Wade, when we didn't have protections. And I had an acquaintance, I wouldn't say a friend, who almost died from a back alley abortion. You can't ban abortion. You can only ban safe abortions. Do they think if they make them illegal, they will quit having them? No, they'll just die. That's why this whole bill came to be, to save lives. And they are taking it away, and people are dying again. I just don't understand how they don't connect the two.
So would you say, I know you're running on a lot of things, but would you say the abortion issue is the main issue, either for you or just the main issue this election cycle?
I think it's the main issue this election cycle, because it's different from last cycle, because we had Roe v. Wade last cycle. And yes, it is the main issue for me, because I've lived with the protections of Roe v. Wade and without them. And I've seen the difference. And if we go back to the way we were, we're going to have deaths like the way we were. So that's my big thing, because it's the main thing that's different. Also, trying to get the VA private is scary. And so that's my second thing. And my third thing is protecting Social Security, because let me tell you, if they keep telling you it's an entitlement, and entitlements are things like food stamps or Section 8 housing, they're not taxed. Our Social Security is an earned benefit. Our money we paid into, matched by our employers in interest-bearing accounts for, like I taught for 40 years. Now, if you're going to try to tell me you're cutting it, you're stealing from me, and you're stealing from everybody else who has that earned benefit. I wish people would understand that.
You talk a lot about taxes as well during this interview. One of the things that is getting a lot of media play is tariffs. Of course, Trump talked about wanting tariffs. Do you think tariffs are a good deal, or are you on the other side where you think this is going to be a cost just put onto the American consumer?
Well, statistics say tariffs makes products higher. It's like if you tax China or Japan, they just add it to the cost. Tariffs are a terrible idea. In fact, if you will look at all the economists, they say Trump's plan will increase the deficit by trillions. People don't understand tariffs. Tariffs are just take the tariffs away and put tax there, because that's what it is. It's a tax on the American people for products they buy. And I don't even think Trump understands tariffs.
Some people have worries about a declining birth rate for the country. Do you see this as a problem, and what can be done to try to incentivize or to make the country a little bit more of an easier place to raise a family, to have kids?
First of all, they need to bring back the child tax credit. When they took that away, it put 50% more in poverty. They need to give family leave like every other country. We need to make sure people who have babies have protections. And what they want to do is say, you have that child, we're going to protect it while it's in vitro, but once it's here, you're on your own. If you can't afford lunch at school, we're not going to give you free and reduced lunches. If you can't afford housing, we're not going to help you. That Republicans are pro-birth, not pro-life. They want them here, but they don't want to educate them, feed them, house them, or give them medical care. So I think once they start, like in every other country, they start treating births with respect, births will increase, especially childcare. Childcare is incredibly expensive, and they don't want to help with childcare. You can't hardly get a job, and they don't want to raise the minimum wage from $7.25. Been that way for 14 years. Think about after they take out the taxes, that's like $5. Can you live on $5 an hour? No. And that's what I'm saying. These people, these Republicans say, we want you to work, but we're not going to give you a living wage that you could pay childcare, because we're not going to raise the minimum wage from $7.25. It's an oxymoron.
Mary, have we missed something this interview, or is there anything else you want to tell the voters before going out to the ballot box on November 5th?
Read 2025, Project 2025. Trump keeps trying to say, oh, well, that's him, but everybody in it was in his administration. And it's not good for veterans. It's not good for the people. It's not good for voters. It's not good for minorities. It's not good for marginalized people. And honestly, when Trump said, if you vote this time, you won't have to vote again, that scares me, because I think he may be right. If he becomes a dictator and he gets all these people, look at all the people who are not supporting him, people who knew him the best. Look at those General Kelly. You know, I mean, his own vice president isn't voting for him. Read the room. The people who knew him best are saying, don't vote for him. One of them called him a fascist. If you look at the definition of fascist, he ticks off every box. So I'm saying, get out and vote. If you haven't voted before and you're registered, go vote now. Make sure you're still registered, because Stitt has cleared the rolls, which, you know, you're not supposed to be able to do 90 days before an election, but nobody can control Stitt. So most of the people they took off the roll, guess what? Were Democrats and independents. Republicans only win if they cheat. We cannot have Oklahoma in this kind of fascism, non-democracy, because we are already having awful statistics with our education and our spouse beating. What will happen if there are no guardrails on Trump? At least Mike Pence said, I'm going to honor the Constitution and I'm going to certify the election. Vance says he won't. This might be the last time we have democracy.
All right, Mary, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day and best of luck in the election.
Thank you so much for having me.